but I wanted to bring this onto the YouTube platform because I feel like we can touch so many more people rather than just people in our paid forums. So if you are thinking about nutrition coaching, one thing to do is to investigate somebody who you might actually connect with. So I highly recommend that you interview 2 or 3 coaches, maybe even 4, to figure out who is going to be the best personality fit and the person who most identifies with your struggles. Again, your hurts, your hangups, and all the things that maybe are just impairing your actual success with nutrition. So, that being said, tonight we're going to be talking about meal pairing, a concept that I find is very important for not only people who are trying to get off of metformin or diabetic drugs, but also people who are borderline type 2, people with insulin resistance, and also people who have been in calorie deficits long term, including those who have chosen to use or implement intermittent fasting as a tool, which it is. But a tool for fat loss, meaning they're not getting the energy that they need early in the day, they're actually fasting, and then they're having an eating window later in the day or midday, and then again, fasting. So my problem with that is that early in the day is when usually most of us have the most duties. We need to be the most active typically upon waking and when going to work and getting kids ready for school and operating, a lot of different moving parts, spinning plates, if you will, throughout the day. So my thought process is most people, even, back in the olden days, would eat breakfast right around the time that the sun rose, and they would typically eat together. And then they would go about their day performing all of their duties. The kids would go to school, the wife would keep house, and that was not an easy task. It was just go, go, go all day long until the farmers came home or the men came home from work, if you will. And then they had another dinner meal. So I'm sure that a lot of you are wondering, well, is 2 meals enough? And 2 meals might be enough for some people, but probably not for the masses, and probably not enough to keep people's calorie balance in a position where they can feel energized and they can also feel like they have perfect brain cognition throughout the day. So the problem with intermittent fasting is we're not actually getting a form of energy or calories into your system in the morning. In fact, people are so hung up on breaking the fast that they've even asked questions about, hey, is putting cream in my coffee breaking the fast? Well, yeah, in essence it is, because you're then consuming energy, which is going to break the fast. Why wouldn't we just have a meal in the morning that is perfectly paired with a serving of protein, fat, and some carbs, and then give our body what it needs in a form of energy, and then have the next meal when we're hungry, or retrain our insulin to be hungry around when it best fits our schedule. We should eat when we are hungry, recognizing that we have hunger and satiation cues. That's part of also being in recovery from a poor relationship with food, if you've had those in the past, and a lot of you have. And this method will really help you to recognize when you need more frequent feedings. But what you'll see is if you were one of those people that actually snacked all day, you basically were just training your insulin to be responsive to small feedings throughout the day. So anytime it would get low from the small snack that you had, or the body would start to get low in energy reserves, insulin would remind you, like knocking on the door, that you need more food, and therefore blood sugar spike, right, from eating, and then dips back down again. And this happens all day, which could be very problematic if you're trying to retrain your insulin to only be responsive to maybe 2 or 3 meals, allowing the GI to rest and digest throughout the day, and also allowing you to fast at nighttime after your dinner meal. A lot of people, they work all day long. They come home, they haven't taken care of their needs, and now they're starving. And so they have 8,000 or 1,200 or 2,000, 1,500 calorie meal right before bed. And that really isn't the most optimal state for the GI to be in when you're going to sleep either, because your body should be in rest and digest. It should be getting ready to repair and also, recreate all these wonderful hormones, including growth hormone, allows us to feel like a new person the next day, wiping the protein plaques off the brain. but essentially just allowing the GI the chance to rest and digest. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have a meal closer to bedtime, but again, it would probably be best for you to have that dinner meal and then taper off, the sun goes down, and you go to sleep like a normal person. However, the problem with that is they created the light bulb, and we have a lot of people that are working after dinner 3 or 4 hours, and especially after the kids go to sleep, because it's their only time that they will be uninterrupted to finish other projects. And that's where we kind of run into the issues with nighttime eating. You don't get what you want or need early in the day, and nighttime becomes a time frame where you either hide these things from your partner. Some of you are like, yes, she's speaking my language. Or you feel ashamed that you're eating late, but you just want these things because you didn't have any of these things, and you didn't have your fats and carbs earlier in the day. A lot of you have also kind of swung in and out of yo-yo dieting patterns for years, where you were eating keto, meaning, moderate to lower end protein, high fat, and almost no carbs. So all of these things teach us to be a little out of balance, and that's why meal pairing with a portion of protein, a portion of carbs, and a portion of fat, as well as a portion of fiber, will be a key and critical concept, I feel, especially as we get going with type 2 diabetics and reversing some of the early symptoms of comorbidity. I feel that insulin is going to be not only a remarkable thing to study, but a driver. And if we can get the driver to drive down the street in a straight line and not veer off too much to the left or too much to the right, I think we're going to be able to see that we can pretty much put almost any insulin related issue to bed and keep it there. So if you are tracking macros and if you are tracking food, no problem. A very good place to shoot for with protein consumption at your meals for an adult, and again, not every person should be on a 1,200 calorie diet. I eat 2,000 calories for maintenance myself, and most of our clients eat between, probably 1,700 and 3,500 calories for maintenance. I have athletes, I have regular Gen Pop, I have women in menopause, I have women in perimenopause, I have 20-year-olds, I have 30-year-olds, I've got athletes that are very high performing professional athletes and CrossFitters and you name it. So not every person should be eating a 1,200 calorie diet, but here are some standard recommendations. So for protein, between 20 and 30 grams for a female at each meal, or between 40 to 50 grams for males. That would make it very easy for a male to have 3 meals and get all their protein requirements met for the day. That would also make it easier for a female to have 3, maybe 4 meals and get their protein requirements met for the day, depending on what those are. Typically 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight will be a good starting space for most people, but most people do come into our program eating far less in terms of protein. Typically, they are eating more fat and more carbs because they are not eating enough protein, therefore they're not satiated throughout the day, and they're having these blood sugar swings, if you will. Another monumental thing about meal pairing, having a protein serving and a carb and a fat at each meal, is you start to realize, holy smokes, I was eating 3 servings of fat. Now I'm only eating 1 serving of fat. You're basically controlling the amount of calories that you're eating at each meal and pretty much training your body to use those calories. And by the end of the day, if you're in a deficit, again, you'll also start to see that after 7 days, your average weight should be trending downward, because if you're in a 400 or 500 calorie deficit each day, technically by the end of the week, you should be down a pound or 3/4 of a pound to a pound, right? Now, those things are not always static on the scale, but you'll definitely start to see those results in your clothing, especially if you're taking progress photos and things like that. But again, it's going to take some time to get consistent with the pattern of either hitting your macronutrient needs or calorie balance, if you will. Calorie counters, those were a very difficult thing to use in the past, and that is why you've seen such a craze with macro tracking and using macro tracking apps like MyFitnessPal, Lose It. Again, some of these apps are really awesome tools, but you got to know how to work them. So that's what we teach our clients, is how to be smarter than the app or smarter than the average macro tracker. And the same thing would go for eating meals out. One thing about learning how to pair your meals with either a third or a quarter of your macro needs for the days, your proteins, carbs, and fats, is that getting those balanced meals in is going to probably make you feel a little bit more energetic throughout the day. It'll keep your blood sugar more balanced, and it will also help you get everything into your system so that you are not feeling like you need to binge like a crazy person at night, or you feel like you're really wantful for nothing at night. So essentially, it's curbing that nighttime eating pattern. It's also allowing us the opportunity to go to sleep and use our sleep time as a fasting window. A window where if you are in a calorie deficit and your goal is fat loss, you'll be losing body fat. Again, between your meals, you might actually be using fat for fuel because you're not over consuming at certain meals and under consuming at the others. So meal pairing works for various reasons. That is why we teach it as a part of our program, because again, when we have people who are borderline diabetic, this is going to be a great system for them to learn how to eat and not have off limits foods. They can still enjoy an alcoholic beverage once in a while by having a portion of protein, fat, and fiber before they drink, and not allowing that to affect muscle protein synthesis by having that one drink and then starting again the next day and having these perfectly or, portioned split meals, maybe not perfectly, but, portioned and split meals throughout the day so that they are actually partitioning their energy throughout the day more frequently rather than just having one burdensome meal or having way, way, way too much to eat at nighttime, feeling bad about it, and then starting again the next day by restricting. It's a vicious cycle, and you can see that, this whole intermittent fasting craze is great. I mean, intermittent fasting is fine, and it's great if it helps you eat within a window that's practical for you, but it can have a little bit of a double-edged sword effect, if you will. So if it creates this binging tendency at night or this wild craving tendency at night, or you find yourself eating and then eating out of boredom or eating to fill your macros if you're tracking macros, then you got to kind of look at your eating window and try to systematize an eating window that will work better for you. For instance, I'm very busy in the morning when I wake up, so I do have a shake first thing with a little bit of some berries. And again, my shake does have fat in it, so it's got about a full portion of fat, one serving of carbs, which is about 30 to 40 grams for me, and a serving of protein, which is about 30 grams of protein. Okay, so I do that right when I get up, get moving, and then I work for about 6 hours. I then go to train, so I do have a meal before I go to train by about 2 hours. I don't train well off of a heavy meal, so a lot of people will just do a light snack like a piece of toast with peanut butter on it to get some carbs and fat or energy into their system before they train. And the first thing that we hear is, wow, I'm actually, sweating during my workouts now. I've got some energy and I'm able to push past that second set into the third and fourth set and feel better than I did the first and second set, which is awesome. Those are definitely performance changes. And for some of you, you train okay or, par off of nothing or even your breakfast front load. That's totally fine. Until you try different things, you won't figure out what really works well for you. So we recommend just at least having something with a serving of carbs and fat, and then following your training session unless you are a certain brain type. And again, I won't get into that on this session, but the 1B neurotype, which I will talk about in our other sessions, actually does better with protein and fat before training and their carbs after training. So if you're not that neurotype and you are one of the other 4 neurotypes, it might be beneficial for you to have the carbs and fat and then follow your training session with a protein source of, again, 20 to 30 grams. If you're a female, it's a good shooting spot. And if you're a male, 35 to 50 grams. It's a good shooting spot. Now, again, everything's going to be kind of subject to the person's goals, their body weight, and of course, where they're at right now and where they want to take themselves. So everybody's going to have a little bit different equation, but I hope this kind of breaks things down to show you why meal partitioning is a good idea versus not coming out with any food in the morning, wondering why you're feeling exhausted and need caffeine by 12 o'clock or 1 in the afternoon. And then again, once your insulin drops around 3 or 4, and it starts to dip and drive, you start feeling like, oh my gosh, why am I so tired? Well, that's another thing. It's time for you to start winding down around 4, 5, or 6. You've been up since 5, 6 in the morning. Usually people would rise when the sun's up and start to wind down right around when the sun is going to come down. So it's pretty normal not to feel like you have the ultimate of recharge around 4 or 5 at night. You should technically be kind of winding down for the day at that time. It's just that the light bulb has made it so easy for us to keep working even after dinner, even after the kids have gone to bed, and we should be kind of starting to tap the brakes and set in for our nighttime routine at that point in time. So just a few things to ponder. And again, I will be coming back on with a few more concepts about the neurotypes, the 1A, the 1B, the 2A, the 2B, and the 3 as we get closer to the end of September here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys back here for another conversation with Kelly next week.